Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Smartlogic webinar, Discover Practical Solutions for Cloud-Based Information Governance. My name is Ann Kelly. I'm a senior writer for Smartlogic, and with me today is Mark Lair, Chief Operating Officer at WAND. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We're conducting today's webinar in broadcast mode, and all attendees are muted. If you have questions during the presentation, please submit them in the question box in the GoToWebinar console, and we'll answer as many of them as we can during the Q&A portion at the end of the broadcast. Broadcast replay information will be sent to all participants following the broadcast via email. In today's webinar, we'll start with a discussion about content intelligence, what it is and why it's important. Then we'll look at why organizations are moving business applications and information to the cloud, and the benefits and features of Smartlogic's latest platform, Semaphore Cloud. And then I'll turn the presentation over to Mark, and he'll talk about taxonomies and ontologies, some challenges in ontology development, some successful taxonomy development strategies, and he'll do a demo so we can see how easy it is to start building a model using a WAND pre-built taxonomy in the Semaphore Cloud environment. And then we'll open it up for questions. I've been with Smartlogic since March, and before coming, I hadn't really heard a lot about content intelligence. I actually didn't even know what it meant. But I've learned a lot in the few months that I've been here, and at Smartlogic, we define content intelligence as the combination of semantic technology and information science that allows machines to model a problem domain, interpret that model in order to create the rules which are used to classify and describe information. By describing that information, you can analyze and visualize that in order to leverage human intelligence that's locked within the content. And the components of Smartlogic Semaphore that perform these tasks are Ontology Server, which allows you to create and manage models, rule bases, they interpret the model and create the rules that allow us to extract the information that's used in auto classification, Classification Server, which is responsible for attaching that precise and consistent metadata, and the Advanced Language Packs, which allow you to perform analytics, and finally Semantic Enhancement Server, which provides a mechanism to visualize your results. At this point, you might be saying to yourself, well, why does content intelligence matter? What are the use cases, and what problems will it help me solve? Well, by automatically describing your content with rich metadata, in other words, what it is, what it's about, and what it does, as you can see, you can do a lot of things. You can audit what you have. You can intelligently archive and migrate your information so you can focus on what's important and more effectively govern your information. You can secure sensitive information like PII and HIPAA, which helps you comply with governmental regulation. You can manage records based on their content. You can drive workflow and case management based on the content in order to increase organizational efficiency. You can improve findability and aid in e-discovery. You can augment business intelligence and big data initiatives to incorporate the unstructured data that's really so valuable but is currently not being used. You can monetize your data to invent new revenue streams, and you can harmonize your data. In other words, you can take all that information from disparate sources and bring it together to use it to drive business decisions. And Semaphore Cloud can help you do these things. Well, Semaphore can help you do these things, whether you're on-premise, in the cloud, or in a hybrid mode. Why cloud? Increasingly, we see our customers and organizations are moving business-critical applications and information to the cloud in order to improve access and collaboration, maybe to increase speed to market with a new product or a new initiative, share and reuse resources, and to decrease costs and capital investments. Smartlogic's new platform as a service offering, Semaphore Cloud, lets you take advantage of all those things, and it lets you focus on your business instead of focusing on the technology that you should have to run your business. With Semaphore Cloud, your cloud service provider manages the content, and Semaphore provides the ontology management and integrated classification services that apply that metadata to all your information assets. Semaphore Cloud works with all major cloud content management services. And if you look up in the right-hand corner of this image that we have here, you'll see that clients can import existing corporate and public ontologies. They can link to external taxonomies, or they can take advantage of starter vocabularies from Smartlogic, including those from our partner WAND, and that's something that Mark will be showing us in just a little bit here. But Semaphore Cloud can has another advantage that other cloud offerings don't have, and that is it leverages the Semaphore 4 product. Next slide, there you go. So with our new Semaphore 4 product, you can build models faster. Our Semaphore 4 Ontology editor is browser-based for simple collaboration. Subject matter experts and the information scientists within your organization can access models at any time from anywhere, and they can work on more than one model at a time. Semaphore 4 supports good governance. Model changes are task-centric, and it drives those workflows and improves feedback loops that kind of mimic the way teams really work in this environment. You can also apply information governance policies to the model changes, and model managers can then go ahead and review and approve potential changes before committing them to production. You can ensure interoperability and seamless integration. Semaphore 4 fully supports semantic technology standards, and these standards provide a common framework that allow technology to create meaningful relationships between resources and make the meaning of those resources explicit. You can facilitate the reuse of industry models, so the ability to connect internal models and incorporate public domain models into the ontology building process lets you leverage your internal knowledge as well as the accumulated external knowledge out in the public domain. And finally, you can improve findability in the analytics. Our new Semaphore 4 classification server has improved the precision and consistency of the classification process. You can discover entities and facts now within documents, and we've created some additional fact extraction rules that improve classification results to drive analytic processes and improve the search and retrieval experience. And all these great advantages begin with a model. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Anne. Appreciate it. And Anne's done a great job of talking about the benefits and the Semaphore cloud technology and what it's going to bring to your business. What I want to do is take a quick step back and do a little definition of terms, talk about the challenges and how we can help overcome those challenges in creating ontology models, and then we'll take a look at a demonstration of tactically how to actually do these things within Semaphore Cloud with WAND taxonomies. So defining a few terms, and the first question a lot of folks often have is what's the difference between a taxonomy and an ontology? So a good way to think about a taxonomy is like a tree structure. People often think of a family tree, so parent-child relationships, and we're relating concepts from the broadest concept down to more specific concepts. So the taxonomy we see on the screen here is a very famous taxonomy. It's the Linnaean taxonomy of life, and most people will have encountered this in your high school biology class. And what we see is there's categories of, in this case, animals. There's also a branch for plants, but in this case, animals that allow us to take any given animal and place it in a category. So you see at the bottom we have humans are Homo sapiens, and house cats are Felis domestica. So taxonomy is a set of categories around a specific topic. It's organized into a hierarchical tree structure. And taxonomies are really useful, I think, for kind of website navigation, browsing through category trees. Taxonomies kind of look like a folder structure, so it's something people are familiar with. Taxonomies are something you'd see on an e-commerce shopping site, for example. So that's broadly what a taxonomy is and how it might be used. An ontology is really like a taxonomy on steroids. It's one way to think of it. Whereas a taxonomy is a tree, you just have those broader term, narrower term relationships. An ontology is really much more like a web, meaning you can have concepts with multiple different relationship types to other concepts. And ontologies are really useful for providing a rich, robust, complete model of a complete domain. Whereas in a taxonomy, we just have broader term, narrower term relationships. In an ontology, and you can see this is an ontology of cloud computing, we can define any type of relationship we want. Here we have a concept of Adam Salipsky, and you can see that he is the vice president of Amazon Web Services. And Amazon Web Services is a subsidiary of Amazon. So you can see we can take all of these disparate concepts and place them in a model. With the taxonomy, the Linnaean taxonomy, all you can really categorize or represent in that model is kind of what the animal is. But in this ontological model, we can represent all types of interesting information about this domain of cloud computing. So whereas a taxonomy is pretty good for browsable navigation, things like that, an ontology is going to be really good for more sophisticated searches for question answering. So if I had a good ontology, I could say, who was our 16th president? And based on the ontology model in the background, we'd be able to answer Abraham Lincoln, things of that nature. So we have taxonomies and ontologies. They're all very exciting things for we taxonomy and ontology nerds. But for most business users, a taxonomy or ontology by itself isn't very exciting. So what do we do with it? And what we do is a taxonomy or an ontology is going to be a set of or a model that we can use to classify our documents. So what do we actually mean? What is classification? And classifying basically means applying metadata to documents. And the colloquial definition of metadata, or a common one that folks use, is just data about data. But a more useful definition, a useful way to think of metadata might be how we describe something. So how are we describing that document? Now I break metadata into two types of metadata. And the first is what we'd call administrative metadata or flag metadata. These are things that if you right-click on the view properties of a Word document on your desktop or any document, you're going to see date, file type, file size, author, all these things, maybe some security settings. All these administrative metadata values are extremely easy to get because usually they're just automatically set by your computer. So really easy to get. Unfortunately, they're not particularly helpful in understanding the content of the document or triggering a workflow based on this. When's the last time anybody's looked for a Word document that's 35 kilobytes in size? Once in a while, but more often we're interested in the aboutness of the document. So that brings us to the second type of metadata, which I call descriptive metadata, one or multiple words about the content of the document. Is this a human resources policy? Is this about paid time off or accidents? So that's really giving us clues what's in the document, what's the type of content that we're going to be interested in. And it's the descriptive metadata that is where taxonomies and ontologies come in. It's the concepts within the ontologies that will be applied or classified, or that documents will be classified to. So it's the descriptive metadata once we have our documents classified that's going to provide search refinements for end users, general content organization. It can trigger workflows and help us get a lot of those benefits that Anne outlined earlier. So we've defined some terms. We know what a taxonomy and ontology and classification mean. So how do we kind of get started? And the first challenge companies often run into is we maybe see the business benefits of ontology, but how do we create it? Now the challenge of creating ontologies that a lot of companies run into is that, believe it or not, language is very political and people cannot agree on terms in an organization. We have seen projects, internal ontology projects drag on for 9 or 12 months, and there's debates about, well, what do we call a customer? Where does this concept go? And the reason for that is starting from a blank sheet of paper is really challenging. A lot of folks aren't familiar with what an ontology is, so you come to them with an ontology project, and maybe once they know what the word is, now they're all coming up with kind of different starter. There's no frame of reference. So a frame of reference can really help to get everyone on the same page. That's where the foundation taxonomies or starter taxonomy sets coming in can really help. So that when you undergo these projects, you're not asking people to recreate the wheel or develop something from scratch. You're really asking them for their specific feedback. So using a foundation taxonomy can really accelerate the process of creating that model. The second challenge people have, once I have an ontology, how do I use it? You know, ontology really doesn't have much value unless it's tagged to your content or your content is classified. So that's where you need to investigate a tagging strategy, and where a tool like Semaphore Cloud can really help. you can import an ontology. You can use that tool to customize that that ontology, and then you can use that very same tool to classify your content to the ontology. Now we've solved the problem of creating the ontology and making that ontology useful. So again, the five really key steps that you want to think about when you're undergoing an ontology project. First, like I said, you want to have an ontology management tool. The most common tool traditionally that people have actually used to manage taxonomies would be Microsoft Excel, because everyone has it and it seems kind of simple. But ontologies are much more powerful, and you can't model ontologies in Excel. There's no governance within Excel. So there's a lot of, and there's no classification capabilities within Excel. So there's a lot of good reasons to invest in a strong ontology management tool like a Semaphore Cloud. The second thing is it's really important to identify your business problem. Why are we creating this ontology? Understanding what you're trying to achieve. Maybe it's searchability, maybe it's workflow, maybe it's records retention, maybe it's helping get the right information to your sales team at the right time so they can sell more product. Understanding that is going to drive the design of the ontology. So it's important to have that identified up front. Third, as I mentioned, if you can incorporate pre-built ontologies to jumpstart the process, whether that's from WAND, whether that's open data, wherever you can, it's great to have something off the shelf in the tool when you start your customization process, so that the people that you're working with to customize the ontology, again, have that frame of reference. Next, once you have that off the shelf or pre-built ontology, you're going to want to go through a customization process. We'll talk about the steps to do that next. But the ontology needs to be customized so it reflects your specific organization. For example, if you're doing an HR taxonomy, you might want to add your specific benefit plan names that people might search for within medical insurance or whatever it might be. You might want to add acronyms. There might be tribal language that people use. You want to make sure that's reflected in the taxonomy. And aside on this, you also don't have your business users be doing this customization. Leverage them to get their input. Spend an hour with them to show them the ontology and get their feedback, but don't drop it in their lap. That's where you see the ontology projects extending out, because people have a lot of work to do. They're not experts on ontology. So leverage your business users and your stakeholders, but don't make them do the ontology development. And then last, your ontology is never complete, so use an agile approach. Use the off-the-shelf model, refine or edit it. Use a tool like Semaphore, do some classifications, see how they came back, and refine. Iterate, iterate, iterate. Even once you've got your first draft, over time you're still going to want to iterate your taxonomy. Concepts change within organizations, so that it's a living and breathing document or model. Some of the things you're going to do when you're enriching your ontologies: add synonyms and acronyms. If there's different ways that people might mention a concept within your documents, make sure that's reflected in the model. Something as simple as human resources and HR. Make sure the acronyms are put into place. You're going to want to create new relationships between terms. That's, again, creating that rich ontology model so you're describing concepts within your organization appropriately. That's going to allow you to do interesting things like question answering. It's going to allow you to maybe assign retention codes based on classification. So new ontological relationships between concepts will be something you want to build out over time. Use something like text miner or the entity extractor within Semaphore Cloud to help identify important concepts. So this is a great technique. You start with a pre-built ontology. Use the tools and pull in some content from a domain, maybe human resources, and actually classify it. See what TextMiner pulls out as interesting concepts or noun phrases within those documents, and evaluate whether you want to bring them into your ontology model as a synonym or a new term. I think it's a great approach when you're spending that hour, 90 minutes with your business users. Tell them to bring some content, and they can see the model, they can see how it's classifying, and they can give you really specific feedback based on what they see. You know, this document should really be classified as a policy instead of a form, whatever it might be. But that makes the process really interactive and really interesting for folks. And it also helps build the case, okay, if we do this, I can see how I'm going to be able to use this to find information more effectively. And again, that speaks to kind of classify, test, and iterate, iterate, iterate. With that, we're going to leave our slides. I'm going to walk you through a demonstration of Semaphore Cloud using some of the WAND ontologies. So this is the WAND taxonomy library portal, and you can just see the list of taxonomies that we have available. We've developed taxonomies for most industry vertical segments, as well as functional business areas, so building and construction, management, oil and gas, mining, and things like customer service, sales and marketing, legal, IT. There's a complete catalog on our website. I'm just going to browse down to project management. Let's try that again. And now I'm going to browse back down to project management. And when I click on it, I will get a view of this ontology. So what this is it's really a place where I can find the building blocks. This is not an ontology management tool, so I can't make changes to it, but I can identify, is this ontology a good starter set for my business goal? And if so, I can download it and export it into a format that'll import right into Semaphore Cloud. I've already done that for sake of time, so I'm going to go to my Semaphore Cloud ontology editor, and I'm going to open up one of the models. And you can see there that it does allow you to manage multiple models at once. So that's a great kind of tip or trick when doing taxonomy development. Another reason people often get bogged down is they feel like they have to model the entire organization at once, and that can be an overwhelming task to start with. So what we recommend is really, as you're defining those business challenges, the reasons for building the ontology, figure out if you can maybe start with a certain division. HR is often a great place to start because it's high profile. And build that out, deploy the model, and people see the benefit of actually building ontologies. But what I'm going to do is just simply click right up here, import, and I'll just navigate to this project management taxonomy that I previously downloaded from the WAND portal. And now you can see it's really quickly imported. And the very same model that we saw reflected in the portal is now within Semaphore Cloud. So it's that easy to get started, and now I can use these tools within Semaphore Cloud to begin doing customizations. And I'm going to pop over and open up a different model, the WAND HR Taxonomy, to show you some of those customizations. See, I opened the taxonomy. This, I think, is a really, as a taxonomist for over a decade, I think this is a great feature of Semaphore 4. So I can either edit the master, or Semaphore Cloud, I should say, or I can edit via a task. And what a task is, it's basically like an overlay or a draft. So somebody could make changes to this ontology and sort of see how it looks, share it with folks, and people can evaluate those changes before it's published to the actual master. So that's really powerful from a governance perspective. I'm going to edit the master. And now I see the WAND Human Resources Taxonomy again, and you know, we can quickly begin to make changes or customizations to these taxonomies. Maybe I don't care about employee attendance records for whatever it might be. That's not something we keep in my company. I can delete the term. We don't have unions. I can delete that. If I want to rename a term, I can quickly browse through company handbooks. Maybe we have a different division in Europe, company handbooks Europe, something of that nature. So there I've been able to add a new term. You can see over here we can do things like add alternative labels or synonyms, create related concepts, add different metadata to the term itself. So there's a lot of options for customizing a taxonomy, and again, a great way to do it is to use Classifier and see, okay, let's classify some documents and see what comes back. Maybe we want to make adjustments to our model. So I'm going to go over to Classifier, and actually going to start with this employee resignation document, send for classification. And this is classifying against the WAND Human Resources Taxonomy, so that model that we just created. And you can see it was classified to resignation sample letters. And if I click on this, I can see in the document why it classified. Classified because it matched the concept letter of resignation, which you can see here is a non-preferred term. So if I go back here, resignation sample letters, I can search and find that concept within Semaphore Cloud and see where it is in the tree. And this is something I did right before the webinar. I added these alternate labels, letter of resignation and employee resignation letter, to make sure that this rule fired. So the concept letter of resignation is recognized in the document, and thus it tags. And there's a lot of intricacies you can build into your model. You might need to see this concept several times, or you might want to weight the preferred concept more heavily than you would the alternative labels. So there's a number of different things that you can do to adjust the model over time. We'll show a different example. I'll go back, and now we're going to classify this time off request form. Send for classification again. So there's a few things we're getting here. We're getting 3 hits within the Ontology employee name. So this could be interesting to use Anne's example for securing PPI. You might want to know if a document has an employee name field or a social security number within the document, and you could create a relationship within the model that if it has employee name, it is secure information, and create a rule so that if it gets tagged with employee name or social security or credit card number, whatever it is, that it will also be tagged with secure information. So that's an example of some powerful things you can do with a model. We also see that it's a time off request form, and it matches the concept of family medical leave because it's family or medical leave. The other interesting things here is I've actually turned on entity extraction within Semaphore Cloud. So this is kind of like the text miner that we talked about, but here it's extracted this as a date. Maybe that's not interesting to us, maybe it is. It also extracts the organization, WAND Inc., and that's from the document metadata because WAND Inc. is the organization there. But there's, I think, 120 plus different entities that can be extracted. So again, this is a really great way to make the process interactive when you're customizing your ontology. So you're not doing it in a vacuum. Use your actual documents and see what you should add or not to the model. And we'll classify one more. Exit interview. The last thing I'll kind of point out again, we have 3 hits here: exit interview forms, company policies. You can see they each have a score. You can actually set a threshold. So if company policies, you know, it's mentioned in here, but this really isn't a company policy. It's someone saying, I feel that company policies. You can see that it's scored a little bit lower. If we wanted, we could set the threshold to 50, so only things above that weight of 50 are going to come back. Again, it kind of speaks to how you can adjust the model to get the results you want. But I think what's really exciting is we're able to use a WAND off-the-shelf ontology, bring it into Semaphore Cloud, and pretty quickly, I've not honestly done a lot of customization to this model, get some pretty decent classification results out of the box that of course can then be refined. So the whole theme of this webinar is really strategies. How can we move forward with information governance more quickly? And from the Semaphore Cloud side, you have an application that's in the cloud. There's no IT infrastructure. You can get it, it's hosted. You can get rolling with it very quickly and bring in pre-built ontologies from WAND. You can start with models that are pretty well defined up front and customize them. So all in all, you're trimming the time down that it's taking to create your ontology models and classify your content, and you're more quickly moving to those business benefits that Anne outlined in the first few slides of the webinar. So Anne, I think that is all I really wanted to cover with the demo today. So
and with that, open it up for questions. The first question is for you, Mark. Do these ontologies connect to the physical data model? For example, if I search an ontology for a particular concept or term, how would a customer know where to actually pull the content from?
Where to pull the content that you're going to classify?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm guessing it's the crux of the question.
Yes.
So I think there's a few things. The first thing is when you're defining your business problem for an ontology project, you probably will have some content in mind. So that might be a great place to start to classify that particular content. If not, though, again, the power of having an automatic classification tool like Semaphore Cloud provides is that you can build your ontology model maybe more broadly for the organization and then classify, connect it to your content. Could be in SharePoint Online or wherever it might be, and see how that content comes out and do some test searching and then refine the model from there. So that's a good example of how you can develop a model to start with, classify some content, test how the model performed against the content, and then continue to iterate your taxonomy model from there. So I hope that answered the spirit of the question.
Okay, here's another one. How long does it typically take to customize an ontology? And I think that'd be for you.
Yeah, I can handle that one also. We've had clients who have been able to customize an ontology in a matter of 8 to 10 hours. Again, I think using the off-the-shelf ontology speeds things up quite a bit because you're really getting right into the polishing mode where you're trimming things or adding things, and you don't have to build the bones of the model that's already there for you. So, and I should say that 8 to 10 hours is for like a department, so human resources ontology. So if you had 6 departments, you could plan to budget. I'd budget 16 hours for each of those departments, and it doesn't have to be all done at once. You could spend a couple hours a day over a couple weeks. Having a tool like Semaphore is going to help speed that up as well, again, because you can use the classification tools and the text miner and entity extractor to use technology to help speed up the process of identifying the terms that you want to add to the ontology. The other thing I think is worth noting, and sorry, Anne, I'm going to add a little bit more to that answer. Your ontology may never be done, so you want to get to a point where you feel good about it and maybe spend those 12, 16 hours customizing it, but then plan to continue to build out that model and refine it over time. So a lot of work will happen up front, but there should be some governance over time, so the taxonomy is going to continue to evolve as your organization evolves.
Okay, I think the next one is mine. It says, what platforms does Semaphore Cloud connect with? and we connect with SharePoint, Office 365, Oracle Web Center content, OpenText, and most other major cloud-based content management systems. All right, we have another question, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Mark. What are the precise functions of the text miner? Is it clustering? And how much of that can be automated?
So I just completed a 2-week Semaphore Cloud training, so I'll try to answer that to the best of my ability without going too much into the, without embarrassing myself too much on the technology. But the text miner and the entity extraction tools, like I said during the demo, there's about 122 different entities that it can identify out of the box. And you can go in and turn those on and off, so have it looking for different entities. Those rules, so to speak, are basically set up, so it's just a matter of really enabling or disabling the ones that you want. There's also, I believe, when it's just pulling out concepts that aren't governed by the entity extractions, that really would be more the text miner. I believe that's a statistical approach, and I know that Semaphore Cloud can have parts of speech and things of that nature, so it does some natural language processing. So you may want to connect with a Smartlogic sales associate to a little bit more details, but based on the training that I went through, there's a little bit of configuration to identify the items that you want, and it can be customized. But you get some pretty interesting results, frankly, just by configuring it at the base model and throwing documents in there and seeing what comes back.
Okay. Seems like you're the lucky winner of the questions today. How many taxonomies does WAND have, and in what domains do they exist?
We have about 90 different ontologies, and it's hard to pin a number down because you can slice and dice them up a little bit, which we've done. But we've developed taxonomies for almost every major industry vertical segment. So an industry vertical segment might be like mining or oil and gas, banking, higher education, K through 12 education, telecommunications, local government, etc. And then we have functional business areas like human resources, sales and marketing, legal, IT. We just today finished a lean quality taxonomy. So generally, the folks who are accessing our library probably need one of the industry vertical taxonomies and then a collection of the functional business area taxonomies. And then we continue to develop new taxonomies and update existing taxonomies on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're running out of time, and I don't have any more questions. So I want to thank you, Mark, for joining us today, and thank you to everyone who attended.
Thank you, Anne.